Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Parishscope. This is the podcast, a part of our newsletter at St. John's, Sand Prairie. I'm Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey Doremus. I'm the Creative Worship Director at Our Savior Lutheran in Washington.
Yeah, how are things going out that way?
It's going good. We're doing well. VBS is going to start in a few weeks.
Okay, what are you guys doing this year?
We're doing scuba.
Okay, scuba. I
So-
saw that one.
It's a very popular one right now.
Yes.
Almost every church, at least it seems like in Washington, is doing that. And my wife's school is doing. They're doing SpongeBob for the musical. So they're like, all scuba VBSs, bring us your underwater looking props and stuff that you made for VBS. They're trying to poach all of them so that they can use them for their musical.
So now, do you? And you might not know, but is that like so? So a lot of times our churches we use CPH, Concordia Publishing House.
Yes.
Is that Concordia or is that group publishing?
I think it's group publishing.
Okay.
I believe I might be wrong, but I know because I think there's basically two VBS groups, like major ones.
Yeah, a group is the one that I really know, but there's others
Concordia,
out there.
Yeah.
But it seems like every year, like when they all pick their themes, it's like real similar.
Yes, I
And
don't
then, like Oriental Trading like goes nuts, like
Yes,
selling
they
all
do.
the same thing.
And I don't know whether it's I don't know whether that's because it's a brand new one or it's just like they're pushing one in excess to others. I don't know.
I don't know, but I know like so. For instance, they'll have like one called Scuba, and then the other one will be called Underwater Adventures.
Yes,
and then the other one will be called like Swimming with Sharks or something.
Yeah. Well, and then you'll see one year where it's like the jungle or something about a jungle, and then every church is doing some sort of safari jungle theme.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so does everybody do they just send out here's the newest one?
Yeah, right.
And everybody picks it? I don't know.
But usually they have like a big reveal, like here's our 2025, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't follow that quite as much anymore.
Yeah, I don't. So I'm getting very, or learning a lot about VBSs and how that works. But I put together like a junior high sort of, I tried to make it sort of a Jimmy Buffett style band with horns and stuff. But we got a lot of practicing to still do. We're working on it. A lot of young, they're all like going into sixth grade. So a lot of them are younger.
Right on.
It's fun, and we picked out a bunch of I put out there for a suggestion of band names, and they all decided to pick the band name AC Deep Sea. So that's our band name, and we'll be playing for VBS. So
well, hey, I mean it's better than Bodie McBoatface. Remember that?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of there was a lot of good ones that people posted, but that was the one that they were really, really set on. So
for those of you that don't know about Bodie McBoatface, I realize I'm making a cultural reference that not everybody might not get, but like it was years and years ago. They went on, I think it was like Twitter or something like that.
Yeah.
And they basically said, hey, we got a new, like, I don't know, it wasn't a deep sea vessel, but it was like a new boat. And they basically said, hey, the most popular one, whichever one gets the most likes, that's what we're going to name our boat. And they were expecting people to be like, oh, name it after my mother, Sally, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what they were expecting. But the one that got the most votes was Bodie McBoatface.
Yes. But that's what happens anytime you do something like that. There's been colleges when they're changing these mascots to be culturally appropriate now. They always are like, okay, well, what do people want to choose? And it's always like the squirrels or something like kind of dumb. I guess squirrels could be fine, but it's always like something very sarcastic. And then the school just goes, we're not doing that. Even though they won, they're like, we're not going to.
And that's kind of what they did with this one. Like they kind of walked it back and they said, well, we had a, disclaimer in the bottom or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can't remember like if they won, but I feel like it was like the people got really upset. They're like, no, we voted.
That's right. Yeah, that happens, I think, a lot whenever people are thinking they're going to get a serious outcome, but no,
just
it doesn't.
Bodie McBoatface.
Bodie McBoatface. There we go.
Speaking about like things that happen online that nobody remembers anymore, I was talking to a group of kids, and of course, I knew that they wouldn't catch this reference, but do you remember Jesus Pants?
Jesus Pants. I actually don't know Jesus Pants.
It was like in the early days of eBay.
Okay.
And some guy claimed that Jesus visited him.
Okay.
And, and like hung out with him for a while, but he needed some pants.
Yeah.
And so he lent Jesus a pair of pants, and Jesus during their visit like wore the pants.
Yeah.
And then he went on eBay and was like selling the pants. And so they were like Jesus pants.
How do you know how much it's sold for?
I don't.
Because sometimes it's amazing what people have bought. The funny thing, this is not really related to Jesus Pants, but when Hostess went under, you remember there was a few years where like Hostess was gone.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
A friend of mine bought a box of Twinkies online for like $80 because there were people like, oh, we have a box that, we didn't eat and they don't expire, they don't expire for like years. And he was just, he always said, oh man, it was so worth it. It was so worth it. And then of course, like 6 months later, someone bought and Hostess came back. And I'm like, yeah, that was really dumb. You knew it was going to come back eventually. Come on. And, but he thought it was worth it. So I don't know. There's some amazing things online that get sold. Just crazy stuff.
Oh man,
Trying to find it.
I'm trying to look for it, but I can't find it. I remember when it first happened. Like it was, like I said, early days of eBay. So it was such a long time ago though. I can't find it.
I love, one of my favorite things is the weird pop culture things that no one's going to remember. Like, I don't know if you remember this. This isn't on eBay, but there was a year around Christmas where I had just started working at the music store I was at. So this had to be like 2014. They had the Christmas cup that came out for Starbucks was just a solid red cup, and people were enraged.
Yes.
Because it was, there was no Christmas reference and there was no, now Starbucks is like going woke and it was this huge deal. And that's one of those things, I never will forget that, but every time I brought it up to anybody, people are they never remember that. They go, what are you talking about?
That.
Yeah. And
because it didn't say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, it didn't say Merry Christmas.
They got rid of the Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and it just had no it didn't even have like snowflakes or anything on it. It was just a solid red cup. And people are really, really enraged by that. And then, of course, this is the nerdy part of me. I always wanted to have a Christmas song for my band that was called the Red Cup or something like that.
Red Solo Cup?
Red Solo
Toby
Cup.
Keith Beach.
Oh, no, not Solo
Cup. Then
he
passed away.
Yeah. But I always wanted to have something, just a Christmas song about the Starbucks Red Cup, just to preserve it as hey, everybody should know what this is.
Everybody should know.
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Do you remember the cup? Oh yeah, that's a topic that tends to pop up almost every year, doesn't it?
Which one?
Oh, they're getting rid of Merry Christmas.
Oh yes, of course.
And I get it. I do. I get it because there's no doubt. The thing of it is like on the one hand, saying Merry Christmas or saying Happy Holidays, like to me, I'm almost indifferent. Even the word holiday means holy days. That's actually what it stands for.
Don't tell them that.
So happy holy days.
Because happy holidays, they all think that they won.
Yeah. So, I mean, even that, so holidays means quite literally holy days, and that can be Christmas. So it doesn't bug me that much in that regard. However, there is no doubt that is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to get Christmas and all that out of it. They just want it to be well, this is everybody's holiday. No, not really, but but anyway, I feel like we go through this fight every single year. So yeah. But speaking of holidays,
yes,
and this is what I thought about. Right before we started, I was like, oh man, what news story am I going to think about? Because look, there's a lot of things that have happened over the last several weeks. It's been several weeks since we've been able to get together.
Yeah.
Life happens. Summer happens. Either you're gone or I'm gone, or something else takes place that makes it to where I I can't make it.
Yeah.
Even tonight, I ended up having a super long meeting and almost didn't make it. So
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there's always something popping up.
Yeah.
But that's life. That's life. It happens. But I was thinking about that. Like, think about all the things that happen. I mean, you have the presidential debate.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, that was a big deal for a lot of people. For the first time, they saw, Joe Biden really as he was. Like in terms of there's a lot of conservatives that have been talking about how, Sleepy Joe, or he's stuttering and he's doing this. And, we've been, a lot of people say, well, he had a stutter, or he had this, or he had that. And it's like, when he got on the debate stage, people finally saw what everybody else had been talking about.
Yeah.
And so in some regards, we could talk about that, but I feel like that gets talked about to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I thought, what we should talk about, being so close in proximity to the 4th of July, is we should actually talk about the 4th of July, and then double down and talk about, like, okay, so, like, for instance, here's a question, and I don't know, maybe if we talked about this, but, like, have you ever pondered, like, where do you put a flag in a church?
Yeah, that is a good question.
I don't know if we've ever really talked about that.
No.
But, like, it is a pretty good question. And at what place should something like the 4th of July or something like that, what place should it take? Not just in a church service, but all around. It is an interesting kind of question to ponder. And this is one of those things, like, they tell you, like, whenever you're in seminary, they'll tell you, like, well, look at where their flags are at, but don't do anything rash, but, see if you can slow it. Because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put their flags by the altar. And really that's inappropriate. Right. The altar is a place that's consecrated, it's set aside for God. And by putting a flag up there, you're basically saying, yeah, God and country, the same tier.
Okay.
And no, they're not even close. But then there's other extremes where they go, well, that no flag should ever be in the church. And it's like, well, but you're in a country, we're not in Germany, we're not in England or Spain, we're in America.
Right.
And, we need to respect where we're at. And we also can show a form of patriotism. I mean, again, theologically, we can't say, like, well, France is theologically, awful compared to us in our theological superiority. Like,
Yes.
we're not going to do that, not by country.
Right.
Now, yeah, right. Now we might do that with, other theologians and other, branches of Christianity. We might say, look, our theology is just superior. And in fact, that is kind of what we're doing. Right.
Yeah.
That we're arguing over certain things of meaning.
Well, and I want to put in there, just at least from my standpoint, if I were to go to a church, like, I didn't grow up in Lutheran church.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I went to a church that kind of said, like, oh, okay, well, you didn't grow up Lutheran, but hey, we're not, like, perfect, we're not like our theology, we just do what we do. There's a part of me that would be very like, well, if you don't really believe in what you're saying, then, like, I would be very turned off by that. I would just think, okay, well, you don't even really fully believe what you're talking about, like, or you think it's very, like, oh, well, Catholics or, Baptists and Lutherans, it's all kind of the same. It's like, I would hope you feel like there's a difference if you're going to a Lutheran Missouri Synod Church, I hope you're pretty serious about that.
And again, there's a lot of people that go in varying directions. Some people maybe came into the church and through various means, maybe at first they didn't kind of, really understand it. And again, there is, oh my goodness. I just hiccuped.
That was good.
That's good.
We're all human,
We're all... But man, oh man.
I should tell people we've been drinking very heavily. No, I'm kidding. We haven't. I'm joking. We have not.
No, not this time. Oh man. But no, what I was going to say is, like, there has been kind of this weird movement that has kind of erupted. It's been around for a while, at least 20 years, I'd say, but it's kind of been the kind of movement where everybody wants to say, well, we're all Christian.
Yeah.
And basically it's like, I think that needs some probing questions, because you got to start asking the question, like, what does that even mean? Like, we're all Christian. And they go, well, we all believe, in Jesus. And it's like, well, okay. We all believe in Jesus. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. We can do that. But then you start asking some of these probing questions, and all of a sudden it's like, well, no, you can't be a Christian if you believe that. Well, I do believe that. So what are we going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Again, kind of getting into the Baptist style debate, you start going in there and you go, okay, well, do you believe that, like, if a baby is baptized, that's it, they don't need to be baptized again? Well, no, in our church we baptize again. Yeah, but we baptize that baby.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, we'd baptize again, but again, since baptism is a commitment for us to do and follow God's will, like, no, I didn't say that's what baptism was. That's what you think baptism is. I look at baptism and say, no, this is something that God is doing, and it's His work, and therefore baptize baby, and that's it. Like, and all of a sudden you say, okay, well, and now we got some pretty big differences.
Right, yeah.
We got some pretty big differences right there. And it's like, no, you can't just say, oh, we're all Christians. Like, can we work the local food pantry together? Absolutely.
Yeah.
As Christians, brother and sisters in Christ, working side by side, can we work that food pantry? Absolutely we can. And fabulous things happen when that kind of stuff does take place. Absolutely. But we also want to make sure that we don't just forget all of that theology that comes with it. Because, again, at the end of the day, being theologically developed is a sign that you're not just reading Scripture, but you're taking it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in the best possible way, right? Even if you're a very serious Baptist or a very serious Presbyterian or a very serious Catholic or Lutheran, like, it all means the same thing, right? Like, if you are, as long as you are reading the Scriptures and really wrestling with some of those texts, I'm not saying that you're going to necessarily agree with me. Now, I think you should, but that's me, right?
Yeah.
But every serious theologian should actually wrestle with the text. And I mean, that's part of what it means to have that developed theology, is to actually start wrestling with some of those texts. And I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think when I hear people try to say we're all Christians, I think the idea, at least for me, since I grew up kind of in a non-denominational church, I think the idea is we're all trying to get to the same place. It's like our paths, we're all maybe a little confused on, well, maybe it needs to be this way, maybe it needs to be that way, which, again, it's not. But I hope that wherever you're going, you know why you're choosing that way. Hopefully it's because that's what the Scripture says, and that's what you're supposed to. But when I meet people who they just don't really know why they do something, that's when it's like more, that seems like a problem to me. We don't really know why we baptize as a baby. It's like, well, you should probably, even though like you should probably know why you do that, or if you're, so I don't know. I think that's what some people try to mean by that, which is, I think, a good thing. But also, like you said, we can work the food pantry together, of course. But you want to make sure you actually know why you believe something and why you're choosing that path to get, hopefully, to the end, with God in the end,
Oh yeah. But. And I mean, again, every I guess you'd say major denomination, they have kind of their known flaws, if you will. And when I say known flaws, I don't want you to take that the wrong way. Like, what I mean by that is, like, they have certain aspects of their theology that cause other unique issues. I once visited a couple, and their mom was about to pass away, and somebody had told me, and they said, "Hey, you need to go visit her," and they didn't want me to visit their mom. They didn't want me to, and their reasoning was that they believed that if I prayed for their mom would heal and get better.
Oh.
And they thought that, she was on hospice care, she was ready, she was, 90-some years old, and so they didn't want me to pray for her. Now, that's a weird thing.
That is a very weird thing to me.
It's a weird thing. But their belief system had kind of created that environment where, they took prayer very seriously,
apparently extremely seriously.
On that front, there was, but they also took the realm, and hey, look, going back to our Joel Osteen, sermon, like they took prayer very seriously, and so okay, that's a good thing. But the negative of that was like they thought prayer almost was like a one-trick pony, it's like, well, if I pray for him, she's going to get better. Well, not necessarily. We also do a service called the Commendation of the Dying, and there are some prayers in there that are like, Lord, we give you thanks for this person, and kind of, I don't want to say it too crassly. I mean, it's a very powerful sermon, but basically, it's like, we're letting go of our loved one. It's an acknowledgement of the gift that God has given to us through this person, and So I mean, but again, that was part of that belief structure for certain Baptist theologies. They sometimes struggle with, how do you define faith? And what I mean by that is they'll say, "Oh yeah, we're saved by faith, through grace. Absolutely, we're saved by faith." And then you go, "Okay, well, how do you know you're saved?" Well, yada 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 yada. And then some cases, depending on, and I always have to say this because like there are so many different Baptist churches out there.
There are a lot of very different.
So whenever I speak so generically, I know that there's like other people like, that's not my Baptist church. And you're right, it might not be. However, a lot of Baptist churches, this is part of the reason that they latched on to the testimonial. Because the testimonial was where you came to faith. That was the whole point, right? Like, I used to live like this. I was I don't know, I was a bum on the streets doing whatever. I was, doing heroin, and then I came to Jesus, and boom, look at me, I'm clean, and yada, yada, yada. My life has changed in all these different ways because of Jesus. And that was the whole point of the testimonial. The testimonial was for me to say, this is why I know I'm saved.
Yeah.
Because this is the way I used to be, and now this is the way I am. Now I know I'm saved. And so it's like, this is the bar.
Right.
And then each generation like redoes the bar. And so like the last video, I remember I watched a video a while back, and like the gal said, well, we just got to love, and that was basically her thing. And she's like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like all these rules, I just can't do. I can love. So there you go. And, but I mean, so that's kind of that flaw, housed in that Baptist, theology is like, you kind of ask that question, like, how do you know you're saved? And like the Baptist goes, well, you had that experience, that change in your life. And then they'll second guess because they'll go, oh, well, I don't, that experience, I don't remember that, or or I do remember that, but what if I was faking it? What if I was doing this? What if I was... And a lot of times this is why a lot of these churches will end up recommitting themselves to Jesus over and over and over again. They'll baptize themselves or get baptized, I guess I should say, like once or twice a year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. Trust me, I went on plenty of youth group trips with the guy who every single trip he rededicated himself because, he had lived the whole year just, messing around with girls and having, doing drugs and doing stuff. But now that he's here for this week-long, youth event, he's going to recommit himself. And then next year, it's like, well, we'll see you again next year, and we'll see you recommit next year again. Yeah. Because he did it every time. And trust me, I've seen that. That's a big part. I've seen that a lot.
And so Lutherans don't have that. But then the other hand, Lutherans will point to their baptisms and they'll say, look, this is a working of God. This is something very physical, something very tangible. But then people can't remember their baptisms because it happened when they were a baby.
Right.
And so then you kind of have the flip of that, where you have people within the Lutheran Church that kind of say, well, I'm saved through faith, but I don't remember my baptism, and I don't remember, you know. And so like you do kind of have a little bit of that where they kind of twist and turn a little bit. But each kind of faith kind of has that element, you know, where they kind of place it. And again, it's not necessarily a negative thing per se. It can be, you know. You don't want anybody to pray for you because you're afraid you'll get better.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one before. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. But like, I don't know. Like I said, it's just, I hope people know why they believe what they're believing, because it's important to actually have a reason for what you're believing, not just kind of go, well, absolutely. I don't know, this is what we do.
And, you know, and again, you know, kind of to the point with this podcast, like that was a huge part of why we were doing this, right? You know, because we wanted to make sure that we, you know, we could have this conversation and we could begin to understand better why we do believe what we believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting because with the way I grew up, I always joke, and some people like this joke and some people don't, that I got double saved because I was baptized as a baby, and then we moved churches in a different denomination, and they did where you decide you want to have a baptism. So I decided to get baptized I wanted to get baptized when I was 8. And there's a lot of people I know, because I listened to a lot of testimonies growing up and stuff. And a lot of people always go like, oh, you know, I got baptized when I was 8, but I don't really remember why I chose it or why I did it. And that's one of those, I think, at least for me, I knew exactly why I wanted to do it, and I was very specific about it. And when we did like your baptism, and you had to go through, you know, talking to the pastor and talking about what it means to dedicate yourself to God and all that stuff. So it wasn't just like hey, today I feel like getting baptized, so I went up and did it. You know, it was a whole thing you had to go through.
Sure.
And that's when I know with Lutheran, it's after you do confirmation you can start taking communion. Is that it? Or no? Am I wrong?
So I will say this, like, this is one of those things that like a lot of people misunderstand.
Yeah.
So confirmation is actually considered to some degree a completion of baptism. Now, I need you to hear me correctly, because I'm not saying that baptism in its own right was somehow incomplete, like God like only did half the work or something like that. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, though, is if you go back to the Great Commission and, you know, Jesus is like sending his disciples out and he says, you know, go therefore and make disciples of all nations. A lot of people believe that like that go is actually an imperative. It's actually not. There's 2 imperatives there, but neither one of them has to do at the beginning. So go therefore and make disciples of all nations, not an imperative. And then the 2 ways by which you are to do that are actually an imperative. One is teaching, and the other one is baptizing them. You know, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That baptizing is an imperative, which means it has a huge direct force to it. But so is teaching.
Yeah.
And so those 2 are kind of laced together, you know, in the Great Commission. And so we are commanded to baptize. Sure, absolutely. It is the work of God. We know that from Paul. You know, you look at Romans 6, Titus 3, all that kind of stuff. Like, we just go through it. It's like this is the working of God. But we also know that we are commanded to teach. And so in the early days of the church, what would happen is the pastor couldn't do it. A lot of times these pastors were moving from one place to another. You know, they might have like a couple people that were there, you know, in the off time to, you know, preach or teach or whatever, but they weren't pastors or they weren't bishops. The bishop himself would come around, like, let's say just once a month. I don't know how often he was actually, but, you know, and so he would come around, and when he would come around, like if a child or somebody was there to be baptized, they'd be baptized, and so on and so forth. Well, after a while, as a child grew older, the parents were expected to teach, right?
Right.
Teaching, baptize, teach. The child was hopefully being taught by his parents, and then after a while, what would happen is he would stand before the bishop, and the bishop would quiz him. They didn't call it a quiz back then, but he would question them, like ask them questions to make sure that the parents are doing their job.
Right.
But basically, it would reach a certain point, and he'd say, yes, your parents have been doing what they're doing. He would, as it would go, he would confirm their baptism, the vows that the parents made in the baptism.
Gotcha.
The vows that were made on behalf of the child in their baptism. He was confirming that those had been actually fulfilled. That the kids were being taught.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so nowadays, it's super funny. So nowadays, we don't have like bishops that roam around. We don't. We have pastors and all this kind of stuff.
Even though transportation is much easier. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and so that is true.
Kind of true.
But anyway, so a lot of times, now we have confirmation classes, but yet we still keep like the ritual of questioning, which is always funny. Mm-hmm. So I work and it's not just me, it's others as well.
Yeah.
We teach these kids for like 2-3 years, and the parents do their part at home. And then they stand before me, and basically I ask them a bunch of questions to basically see if I taught them.
Right.
It's like, hey, do you remember this class? And they're like, yep, here's this. I'm like, man, your teacher is awesome.
But do you still kind of, part of your job, is it still sort of to confirm that the parents have been doing? Yeah,
that is all part of it. Now where this ties in with Holy Communion, is that the Bible tells us that we need to be able to examine ourselves. Now that's in 1 Corinthians 11 where Paul's talking about, he says, let each man examine himself. And so we say, okay, well, how can a child examine himself? Mm-hmm. Well, they don't know what to examine. So who teaches it? Well, we teach that in confirmation.
Yeah. That's
what we teach. We teach those kind of things. And then we also say, well, let's make sure that they know that when they're going up to the altar, that they're actually saying, hey, I agree with everything that's being taught at the altar. Mm-hmm. And so you mix those two parts and you say, okay, well, confirmation. So once they're confirmed, we go, okay, obviously they know how to examine themselves now, and obviously they understand what's being taught and preached at this altar. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, not all churches, the two are sometimes separated. Mm-hmm. When I was at St. Mark's in Wausau, Wisconsin, we used to do First Communion in 5th grade.
So
there was a special class that we would send all the kids through, but they were then expected to continue on in their confirmation classes.
Ah, interesting.
And so we did First Communion in 5th grade, and then they would do confirmation classes afterwards. Well, not afterwards. It was actually all tied together, part of it. But so we had 5th graders that were taking communion.
Interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. See, that's what I kind of, since we got on that subject, that was for me as like going through the whole process of, deciding I want to get baptized, and then having that first communion of like, all right, you've decided this is the path you're going to live. And now you're going to take communion, and like, this is sort of, this is part of it that you're going to do. I mean, that was a very impactful thing to me at the, especially as a kid, like that I made this, that I wanted to do this and everything. So that's the only reason, I mean, since we have different experiences, that it's like, I just wonder, because that, it was kind of an amazing moment for me. But with confirmation, I mean, if that process still gives you the same sort of experience of, the only reason I say it, I don't know, I don't want it to sound, because I'm not trying to down anything, like the way, like the differences. No, but I mean, I hope, I mean, if like you go through confirmation, do all those things, you still have that feeling of like, okay, this is, like, you hit that not roadblock, that I don't know, not roadblock. What's the word? That marker.
Yeah.
like milestone. You hit that milestone. It's like you're taking a new step sort of in your life. I don't know. Cause I don't know, to me, it was very much taught that it was like, this is a new step in your life. And this is like, you're following God, like 100%. And it's not going to be, well, I don't really feel like doing that. I don't really feel like being a Christian today or anything. It was like, you are 100%. If you're making this commitment, you're doing it. And, and so I don't know. I don't know, because I didn't go through confirmation. So I don't know specifically how different, or if it's really, we're all Christians. But I wonder if it's sort of the same feeling of like, okay, I hit this milestone. Now I'm moving on to kind of a new step. Maybe not is the right word, but.
Well, and again, I think to some degree though you can kind of say that a lot of people definitely look at it like a milestone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people unfortunately look at it like graduation.
I'm done.
But to be honest, a lot of people. No, it doesn't matter. Any church that you go to, I guarantee you, if they and they will have something set up for probably around that time period, from somewhere around the ages of anywhere from like 8 to 13, and they will have something, and then they'll get some marker to acknowledge that they have completed something, or done something, or decided something, or whatever it happens to be, and so then you'll almost always get it tagged with like, okay, I'm done now. Like, because I guarantee you, no matter what, if you have a church that's just like yours, you know the one you're describing, we're going to make a decision for Jesus, we're going to be baptized. I guarantee you that there's people that didn't show up the next week, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like, I decided to follow Jesus, got baptized, I did it. There you go, Grandma, I'm out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's like that's the way that it's kind of viewed, and. So you're always going to get that. You're always going to get that.
Yeah, there's nothing you can really, because there's people like that in every denomination,
And you're also going to get the people that are super hyped up, that get like super hyped up, that get really into it. But then, you know what it comes down to is like, this is very much like in line with Jesus in the parable of the sower, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he talks about the plants growing and like how, some of them like spring to life, but then they're choked out by the weeds. And then, and it's kind of that same thing. Like sometimes you got some people that are very, very vigorous but it's like they almost get burnt out. And it's like, it's like that same thing. Like when they're youth, they get very, very excited, and all of a sudden they hit the real world and maybe they're a little less excited,
Yeah. Well, I definitely, I mean, it's sad to me because, there's several people that I grew up going to church with that, I mean, obviously I don't go to that church anymore. There's reasons for that, but there's a lot of things that got changed and voted on, and different like things that they would say, well, we're doing this for our like youth, our high school youth program. And we'd all go like, but we never requested this and we don't want this. Like, this is actually the opposite of what we want to have happen. And they would go, well, this is for the future of it. And there were several people who kind of, that kind of burned them. They were like, I'm done with this, because here they've been preaching this thing all this time. And now they're just kind of like, well, we don't care what you think. So you can go. If you don't want to be a part of this, then go. And it's just a weird, like, well, it's not a very welcoming community when you're kind of just telling all these kids that they don't matter and we don't care what you think because we're just going to do it our way. And so I don't know. It's anyway. so yes, I've seen the people getting choked out quite literally from right next to me.
Yeah. And I mean, again, some of this is like, and I mean, again, we've talked about this before, but like, even when I was a kid growing up, like, I mean, most of the dare I say Christian music that would be on the radio would be this very almost chipper, happy-go-lucky kind of music.
Yeah.
It was almost like overly happy.
Yeah.
And I remember I was, I had a real averse kind of reaction to that.
Yeah.
And part of it for me was, unlike a lot of these kids will go through life, and by the time they reach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they haven't really seen the world for what it is.
Yeah.
They've seen maybe the happy part, but they haven't seen the sad part. And they'll get there. Everybody sees it at some point. But it's like, for me growing up and the environment that I grew up and where I was at, like I kind of saw the dark side of things. And so like the chipper music for me was kind of like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, Jesus is going to take all my pain away, but he didn't, and I still hurt.
Yeah, right.
And it was kind of like that. And so, I don't think I ever remember a time where I wasn't a Christian. But that was also part of my search too. Like, right, whenever I was going through those ages, when I was in confirmation, when I was doing all that work, like one of the things that really captured me, and I remember this, my pastor at the time gave me, well, he didn't give it, he let me read this book called Luther, the Reformer. It was like right after this book came out. I forget what grade I was even in.
Yeah.
I was like in 8th grade or a freshman in high school, and I read this book, and it dawned on me that was one of the things I really liked about Luther. Is like Luther took some of these Bible passages and he really wrestled with them and he really struggled with them. And it wasn't happy-go-lucky. There was a lot of times where his life was absolutely atrociously miserable.
Yeah.
But it also made me realize, like, because it talks in that book, it talks about some of the text that he wrestled with. And it got me going, I've never thought of that text like that. Mm-hmm. And then it got me thinking, like, well, maybe some of these texts aren't as happy-go-lucky as I've always, thought it would be. Like, I guess
happy little Jonah just going over.
Well, and that's just it. Like, right, Jonas is the good, man, here's a guy that spends 3 days in the whale, gets spit up. He's probably got stomach acid all over him. He's probably deformed. Yeah. Like, that is not a happy guy.
Yeah. No, he was. That story's not happy, or at least for most of it. Yeah.
And it's like, but again, it was stuff like that really got me churning and got me thinking, and it was like, okay, and it made me in a lot of ways realize that on a real scriptural basis that Jesus was not this like happy-go-lucky sunshine clown out here, but was actually in fact very real, that he came down into our screwed up world. And yes, our world was screwed up even back then. And I think that's a message that sometimes gets lost.
Yeah.
And, and again, I get it. Like, hey, when you're like 12 and 13 or whatever, again, sometimes life sucks anyway, even when you're that age. I get that too. Oh, yeah. But at the same time, like, for a lot of 12 and 13-year-olds, life can only go up, right? You're going great. Everything's going great. Everything is perfect.
You just don't have the perspective to know that it is going to sometimes.
Oh, no, yeah.
Because you haven't experienced the ups and downs to where you haven't experienced like getting over it yet.
Yeah.
So you just think, well, there's no getting out of this. I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just going to listen to Sting.
And that's not to undercut, like they have stress for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they blow stress way out of proportion because they don't have anything proportional to put it against.
Yes.
So-and-so called me a bad name. And again, I realize like even saying something like that sounds stupid and juvenile, but at the same time, it's like, I'm trying to think of a good illustration. Now, some of those kids, did some of those kids have serious problems? Absolutely. I don't want to suggest that.
And it's so hard. It's hard, especially as adults, because I'm at the point now, like I was sharing a story. We had quite a run-in with a sound guy the other day with my band.
Yeah.
And he went on this rant. He was calling me unprofessional, all these things. And I don't need to yell at him or blow up at him, because I've had enough experience that he can call me as many things as he wants under the sun. I know what I can do, and I know I'm professional. So he can sit there and yell at me and call me names and call me all this stuff, but it's not, I didn't freak out at him. I didn't yell at him. It was like, you can keep running your mouth, because I'm not going to fight you on this, because I know where I stand.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, you don't quite know where you stand yet. And it's like you can't, someone starts calling you a name and it's like you lose it, because you don't have that confidence yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my fear is that, like, if somebody were to listen to this, they go, oh, he's stereotyping like all 12 and 13-year-olds. And I kind of am a little bit, but at the same time, that's what I'm trying to say is, like, not all 12 and 13-year-olds are the same. They're just not. I mean, even from my standpoint, like I think about some of the stuff that I went through, some of it was in my head and blown out of proportion? Absolutely. But not all of it.
Yeah.
Some of it definitely wasn't. And I think that's something else that we can keep in mind too, is that, like, kids need a good, happy image, and they need a very positive image of Jesus, if you will. That happy-go-lucky kind of sunshine kind of thing. That's fine. But at the same time, I guess I'd say I'd caution parents from my own experience, and this is completely anecdotal, I get that. But, like, from my own experience, I would also say, don't just stop there, though, right? Mm-hmm. These kids don't just need they don't just need that. They need the real Jesus that really was in the muck, that was really in the mess.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I hate to say it, but like, you know, sometimes our songs and our music that we listen to on WCIC don't always represent the passion and the mess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes Ozzy gets it better. You know what I mean?
I was going to ask you, what is your what was the band, probably the most like angsty band you listened to when you were in your youth? I mean, I listened to like Shinedown and Stained and all these, like,
great.
They're great. I loved them. Like 3 Days Grace, they were very angsty. 3 Days Grace has a song that's called "This House Is Not a Home," very like, like, I hate living at my parents' house sort of thing. But to me at the time, it's funny because I actually got to see 3 Days Grace at the venue I worked at, and I was fun to see them because I really liked them growing up. But I just didn't have that same. I wasn't angry. You know, so to me it was like, it's cool because I really like them as a band, but I just don't have the same like you know. But at the time they were saying those lyrics were like actually hitting me like, yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah. But then sometimes you're singing, you know, I'll praise you in the storm. It's like I mean, it's just hard because I couldn't really relate totally to that yet. You know, I can definitely sing some of those songs now and really relate. But at the time as a kid, I could not really get my head around that. But who was the Ozzy Osbourne? Any?
Oh man, I tell you what. Like, see, you're getting into. So little known fact about me, I'm actually a huge Zeppelin fan.
Okay, Zeppelin.
A huge Zeppelin fan.
I didn't even know that. See,
I used to be significantly more. They have an album that Jimmy Page actually pushed out years and years ago called BBC Sessions, and it's like just a mix of all their live recordings. And I used to listen to that thing almost every night. Oh
really?
My gosh, it was phenomenal.
That's good stuff.
Big Zeppelin fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I hit all the classic rock. I was huge into classic rock.
Yeah.
You know, Black Sabbath, Iron. You know, Ozzy, of course. You know, spawning out of that. Listened a lot from my age. I guess I'd say I listened to Korn back in the day.
Oh yeah, okay. See, I never got into Korn. They're very. I had a cousin who was really into Korn. Everybody was kind of like, he's a lunatic. So I always was like, whatever bands he was like, you should listen to this. I was like, okay, and I wouldn't because everybody just thought he was nuts.
No, but see, that was just it. Like I always say, I had like a large thing of music because like. I would also listen to a lot of 90s era country. Like,
what?
I used to love Tim McGraw.
What are you from, like Buford, Missouri or something?
You know, I used to really like Vince Gill. And there's something like everybody's like, what? Now everybody is going, Vince Gill. I haven't heard him in so long. And you're like, pull out your album. Let's find a Vince Gill song.
Yeah.
Like, you know. Alan Jackson and all that. Like, I mean, I just love all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that was just it. I loved so much of it. I could go all the way from Led Zeppelin and Ozzy all the way through to Vince Gill.
Yeah.
Or Celine Dion or whoever it was in the mix.
Yeah.
I just liked it all. That doesn't mean I like every song ever. It just means that I like all genres of music for various reasons.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, that's what I don't know. It's just so interesting because obviously I'm a music guy and music's been a very important part of my life. And in just the ways that there's like albums that when I listen to those albums, I'm like, yeah, I listened to this album when I was like 16 years old and then I was mowing like all summer.
Isn't it weird
and I
how
remember
it triggers those memories?
Yeah. And I remember exactly when I listened to the song, I remember exactly who I thought about when that song would play. And I can remember, you know, so I don't know. It's interesting to see. And sometimes when when I start discussing like Christian music with people, it's interesting to see because there's just some of that stuff. Sometimes you're a little angry at 13 and you need to you gotta get it out. And sometimes just singing Amazing Grace is not really hitting you in the same way that, Korn is hitting you or whatever, it just.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I will say it's a lot of our Christian music that's a lot of our Christian music has actually done really well.
Oh yeah,
in that they've come a long way.
It has.
I mean, again, you gotta put what I'm saying into perspective. Go back and look at the albums from the 90s.
Yeah,
guys, that's when I was like in middle school and then high school. Like I was born in 1981. Like we're talking like smack dab in the middle of the 90s. Like all the Christian music. There were some exceptions.
Who were the big ones when you were like in high school and stuff, or middle school, high school? Do you remember?
I don't even know.
See, I honestly don't really know. I remember like Jeff Moore in the Distance.
Yeah.
But I think they were more kind of like end of the 80s, kind of like coming into the 90s maybe. I might be wrong about that, but.
So when I got into high school, the big Christian band I really liked was called Wish for Eden.
Oh, see, I've never even heard of Wish for Eden.
They came out with one album.
Oh, really?
And it was awesome. But it was like, that was it.
Yeah.
And then I don't even know when Need to Breathe came out, but they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
They still are phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but yeah, Christian music's come a long way. And now you got like people like Crowder. You got, you got, what is that?
There's
King and Country.
They're really
they're
cool.
awesome.
They're really cool.
And then Skillet was kind of around, I think.
Skillets, yeah. I enjoy me some Skillet from time to time.
I think they've been around for a while.
And there's like right now there's a guy, Brandon Lake, I think is his name. He's got some interesting stuff. It's different. I'm kind of hearing some of it here and there.
I'm kind of interested to see the realm of like hip hop and rap. Because we're starting to see a lot more of those artists start to pick up and come through.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was actually a big Lecrae fan.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's actually kind of dated too, but like still, there was like KB, there was Lecrae,
Toby Mac.
Grits. Toby Mac was kind of the one that started it all, really.
Yeah.
He's like the Justin Timberlake of Christian music.
Yes, he is. It came out of DC Talk and now all those guys.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It is interesting because like I joke I grew up as a 90s Christian kid, which was not a 90s kid.
Yeah.
It's a different type of, because we listen to Christian music only. Not that I mean, my parents listened to like, they grew up in the 70s and stuff. So like they listened to all that music. They didn't have anything against it. Just as kids, I think, there wasn't cursing and stuff.
Yeah.
So they probably
absolutely.
When we were kids, that's probably what they played because of it. But it is interesting. Some of the bands, just different style. When I was in middle school, it was the hardcore screamo Christian scene was very big,
very big,
very big. So a lot of my friends were big fans of Haste the Day was a band that. August Burns Red, and some of these bands still are kind of touring and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's I would love to see a reaction video of like church members listening to some of their music for the first time because it's loud and screaming, sounding like guttural.
Yeah.
But some of them, it's funny because some of them like they're just directly quoting scripture. It's not even like lyrics, but they're just screaming. So it's it's very funny.
Mad at the world.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting to see how.
Well, now, I do have to put a couple plugs in.
Okay.
For our good LCMS stars, we actually have a couple in our synod that believe it or not made their way to fame of a sort.
Oh, really?
The hip hop artist that we have, I'd never really heard of this guy, but he goes by the name Flame.
Flame.
Yes, and he's a rapper. Made it to some prominence. Not like nothing earth shattering.
Yeah.
But made it to some prominence, and he's an LCMS guy.
Oh, cool.
And then probably the biggest one, and this one made headlines for a while. This guy actually went to seminary for a little bit, and I think he still does like part-time skit, but he's like the bassist for Megadeth.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You know what I love is I love that there's a lot of people. So like Megadeth, the bassist for Megadeth, the drummer for Judas Priest, I think it is. He's a Reformed Christian and stuff. No, I don't know LCMS, but like it's really kind of cool to see some of these guys talk about their faith and everything. They're playing this like loud, aggressive music, but they're yeah.
So we got a couple of them. Right?
Yeah.
Good old LCMSers.
That's pretty great.
Oh man!
Now, I'm sorry to try to wrap it up. Did we really cover the 4th of July flag where it should go in the church? We got very off topic.
Yeah, we kind of went everywhere, didn't we?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, it's been such a long time since we really chatted.
I know.
So, I mean, it's like, we.
But we talked about baptism and sort of all that.
Yeah, we did. Again, basically, what it came down to is the flag probably shouldn't go by the altar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's not like it should be out of the church. Mm-hmm. Again, we're a part of a country.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
And we should be hopefully, God willing, we should be proud of our country.
Yeah, I would hope so. That always makes me sad when I see people who are like, "Oh, we live in this horrible country." That just makes me sad because there really are. I mean, no country is perfect, I don't think. But but what's interesting to me is, I have a Power Ranger YouTube channel, and I interviewed a guy who lived in New Zealand, and one of the things he told me, because that's where they used to film the show for like 20 years, and he was talking about it, and he goes, and it's a beautiful place. He goes, it's very, very corrupt. Like, the politics are very corrupt. It's very, it's controlled in a lot of crazy ways. So it's just interesting because I hear a lot of people they'll bring up some country like, well, this country, they do it right, and it's a very small country. And then you hear like about someone like New Zealand, and it's like, oh, it's very corrupt. Okay, interesting to know, because obviously there's issues here too, but there's a lot of opportunities here. So
we do have we have a wonderful country. Our country is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
We could sit here and talk forever about it, but I mean, just the audacity of truly free speech. Mm-hmm. And I know there's been some back and forth, like, oh, they're trying to silence this speech, and they're trying to and there is some truth to that. There is like movements among us that would like to silence certain things, but at the same time, it's like, realize, like, still, even so, we as a country, we have an element of free speech. We have free speech. Mm-hmm. And the audacity to set up such a thing.
Yeah.
Because, and I love it when the commentators say, like free speech, the amendment for free speech, that's not to protect nice speech. Because nice speech doesn't need any protection, right? If you talk about how great something is and everybody agrees with you, like, that doesn't need any protection. Mm-hmm. What needs to be protected is that guy that comes out of left field and goes, no, that sucks. Because nobody likes that, and nobody wants to hear that, and that's uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's like, that's what free speech protects. Yes. And like, we live in a great country that allows free speech. It allows us, from a church standpoint, to get together, to gather together. And I know that a lot of European and other countries now kind of have a lot of similar rights. Yeah,
it's starting, yeah.
But at the same time, what I find really fascinating is this is one of the things that the pandemic really showed. Yeah. Is like, the pandemic, one of the things that it really did show was the strength of U.S. to actually have certain rights. Now, some of those rights were taken away, and we argued and we fought and we had protests and yada, yada, yada. In Canada, they flat out like blocked off a church because people wanted to go to church. We didn't have anything like that in the United States. Yeah. In Australia, they would hunt you down if they thought you had COVID and you went outside your apartment.
Oh, jeez.
No. Like, even in these countries that we think, oh, well, we're pretty similar to them. We're not. We're really not. Now, we still have similarities to other countries, for sure. But at the same time, it's like, sometimes we forget just how great America really is. It's a really awesome, awesome country.
Yeah, it is.
And so, I hope everybody had a great 4th of July. Yeah. Actually went to the Chiefs game.
Oh, did you? Yeah, that would be nice.
And then watched the fireworks after. Yeah. Definitely worthwhile. If you've never done that,
that's a nice
highly recommend it.
That actually sounds like a much better time than where we were. So, yeah, that sounds really nice.
Yeah, it was. It was really well done.
Was it pretty full?
It was. Okay. I mean, it wasn't like packed to the nines, but like it was. I actually like going to a Chiefs game.
I love going to a game. My thing that makes me sad though is that I go and I like to be like a crazy, like screaming, hollering fan, not at the players, like, or I don't
But to the
scream
people
at
next to
refs or umpires or anything. Yeah, no, I just like to, if they're playing the chicken dance, I like to get up and do the chicken dance. If they're doing, if they're doing some chant, I want to chant. I'm not yelling at the umpire or anything. I'm not. That's I was taught that was very wrong as a child. So, but there's so many times I go. The times I've gone and just nobody is like even watching the game. And it makes me frustrated because I'm like, come on, we're at a baseball game. This is fun. And everybody's just kind of like, it just seems like, man, I can't imagine playing, being out there playing and, you hit a home run and it's kind of like, whoa. And that's like it. It's like, come on, people, like scream. This is great. Anyway, that's my personal. So I was wondering if it was like, were they energized? Was it a good time?
It was a pretty. I think it was a pretty good crowd. Again, I had a really enjoyable time. Had more people there than I'm used to seeing there. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
When I went to the concessions and I had to go twice, it was 20 minutes each time.
Oh wow.
So took a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you got perfect seats for the fireworks that they put on. So
yeah.
So Peoria area fireworks. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. I might have to, because there's a part of me that really wants to find a new tradition on 4th of July. Maybe that should be it. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great. Honestly, it was really great. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Definitely, we'll try to do that again.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So is it that time?
I think it's that time.
I think it's that time for church chatter. Well, I've been trying to think about this. Like, what do we got going on? We're in the middle of summer. We're in the middle of summer, so I'm like trying to think, what do we all have going on? And we really, so the Evangelism Committee is throwing a fish fry on July 19th. However, I bring that up only to disappoint.
Oh no!
That is to say, they've already sold tickets. There's no more for sale.
Oh no!
I know. It's a sad day.
That's really sad.
But if you've been at church, you know it because I've announced it over and over and over again. So everybody should be well aware that they are no longer selling tickets. But they did pretty good, I think. And I'm
well, they sold out apparently. That's pretty good. That's got to be. I mean, that's the best possible outcome, right?
Well, I don't know if they sold out or if they quit selling them. But from what I understand, though, they did sell quite a few, and I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, so that's like July 19th. So that's actually pretty exciting. I know I'm looking forward to it. It should be a great time. We had 4 on the Floor here a few weeks ago. They put on a rockin' concert.
Yeah.
It was fun. Let me tell you. Actually, I should say this. Just for next year.
Yes.
I'm hoping the Evangelism Committee actually brings them back.
Mm-hmm.
Because let me tell you something. They are so much fun.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. Like if I told you the lineup of songs that they did, it wouldn't probably make you all that excited because a lot of them are older songs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I get.
But the way they do them, and they really try to get the crowd into it, like the group into it, and it's like it is just such a fun place. It is such a fun concert to go to. They do wonderful with their song choice and kind of blending them all together. It's really just a good time. The name of the band is called 4 on the Floor. Every year they've done it 2 years now, and every year I go out, leave that concert going, that was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You just don't think there's something in the back of my mind that goes, well, this is going to be, and I go, it's a great time.
It's interesting because I worked at a concert venue. There's these bands that come in that you're like, I've never heard of this band. Yeah. What is this going to be? But some of these bands have been around for a really long time, and they never achieved like radio success, or some big thing. But what they do achieve by touring and doing tons and tons of shows, a lot of times they learn how to put on a great show. Yeah. And so sometimes you're just blown away by these bands you've never heard of that honestly sometimes put on a better show than somebody who got, played for 2 years, became a huge star, and now they just have a big light show and stuff. But some of these groups, man, they just they're really good at including the audience and being a part. And so I don't know.
And I don't even think this band's been around that long per se, like 3-4 years or something like that.
Really?
So they have not been around long, but they're just a good time. It is just, again, they'll do Beatles and they'll do this and they'll pull up songs that are, that are, super old,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just thinking, and again, I even as I'm saying that, I'm like, oh man,
It doesn't sound as cool as it was.
It doesn't sound as fun as it really is, but it really is so much fun, and they just put on a really fun show.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I'm hoping they come back next year. It's sad to say we're over halfway through summer.
I know.
So,
it is sad.
Day.
Yeah.
Sad day. But anyway. Yeah. So really, that's kind of what's going on. I mean, we got a voters meeting coming up in a couple weeks. The school has an open house on, I think it's Tuesday, July 23rd. So looking forward to that as well. Got some exciting stuff. They got some new teachers in there, so excited to meet them. I haven't been able to meet them yet or anything. So yeah, lots of exciting things. But we're definitely in that lull of summer. So yeah.
I will say the where I'm at now, Our Savior Lutheran, we're putting on. We had Denver Bierman of Denver the Mile High Orchestra. We did a concert at St. John's. So we're going to do a concert at Our Savior with him. But they actually the church had this idea, which I'm like, that's a brilliant idea, and I should have thought of this, but I never did. Which you guys did with Four on the Floors. They're going to do it outside, and they're going to do like. Bring your lawn chair sort of thing, and they're going to have a popcorn machine, and so it's open, free admission. You don't have to pay to get in it or anything. Yeah. If it does rain, we'll do it inside, but I think it'll be a nice event. So that's July 20th. It's a Saturday.
Okay.
So, and then our VBS starts the next day, so it'll be kind of like a little kickoff to VBS sort of thing. But
there you go.
Yeah, so if anybody enjoyed seeing that concert or missed it and wants to see he's another one that's a really fun he's a really fun he's done this for a long time, so he's just, I don't know, I'm always amazed when I get to play for it because he's just really, he knows how to put on a show. That's all I can really say. He just knows how to do it, and it's fun to see, especially for me getting to play for it, but just seeing him really interact with the audience is really fun because he knows what he's doing, so it's fun. But yeah,
absolutely. But again, that's kind of where we're at, the lull of summer.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I think we're celebrating 1 year of doing this.
Has it been? I was trying to remember because we have not every solitary week. So usually when you hit like 52 episodes, you're like, oh, that's been a year.
Yeah.
But we don't always get every week. But I was thinking, I don't remember when we started exactly.
That's the big question. Like, when did we start?
Yeah.
And I'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't know. But I think if I remember correctly, it was in July.
Was it? Okay.
I want to say it was. So anyway, now I'm going to look up the Parishscope. I'm literally looking at my phone trying to look this up as we speak.
Now, are you looking that up on the church app?
Believe it or not, I am not.
Not right now.
And I'll tell you why. The reason I am not is because our first episodes were not on the church app.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They were not. So our first episode was published July 6th.
Oh.
2023.
Wow, so we're past it now.
Yeah, we are.
We've hit a year. Look at that.
We are just past a year. So there you go. There you go. So anyway, so that's all I have.
That's all. Yeah, that's all I got.
So everybody, I want to thank you all for listening to our ramblings. Kind of as always, life gets in the way sometimes. We don't always get a chance to get together. Hopefully we'll eventually get it figured out. Maybe we can be a little bit more consistent. But in the meantime, thanks for sticking with us. God's blessings to all of you, and thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.